Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here at my next Avatar Weekly discussion topic video. This week I'm going to be giving you my final speculation for the Korra comics. Now, I'm doing this at this point in time because I suspect we will be getting information about the Korra comics panel, or whatever way Dark Horse is going to do to reveal at SDCC for new information about the comics. We'll be getting that information in the next couple of weeks. So I want my speculation to be out while we basically don't know really anything, which is kind of right now. And then so I can kind of compare my thoughts once the book actually comes out to how I feel right now. Now, I have talked about some of my speculations in previous videos before, but I just want to kind of solidify all of them in place right now. So let's just jump straight in. I think the biggest thing to speculate about is how, I suppose what the story is going to be. We know it's going to focus to some extent on Korra Asami, but I don't think that will be the main focus. I think that will just be a thing where Korra and Asami will interact a decent amount in the book and their relationship will be somewhat highlighted. It's not going to be the absolute main focus of the book. Other than that, the only thing for sure we know about is that the rebuilding of Republic City is going to be somewhat of the focus. So that's the only thing that really hints to us as to in any way what to expect. And what that to me says is that the story is in general staying in Republic City and stuff relating to Republic City. So I think that makes sense, and that a lot of people's criticisms of the end of Book 4, and I suppose mine too, is that the series coming to an end felt a little rushed. It needs more of an epilogue. So I think they can do a lot of stuff with just focusing on Republic City for this comic, and then maybe if they do decide to do a second Korra comic, that's when you can have your Go to the Fire Nation arc, which we didn't even have in Korra the show. That's when you can travel around the world a lot more. For now, I think we are very much dealing with the aftermath of what happened in the finale, in that I actually think the Spirit Portal that is now in Republic City, the new one that Korra made, it's going to be really important, in that when they rebuild the city, they are going to have to make decisions about what to do and how to handle, how to police that Spirit Portal, in that it's right there. It's not right in the middle of the main part of Republic City, but it's there and thereabouts. It's close to the center of Republic City. It's not exactly in some isolated area of Republic City. It's easy to get to, and because it's shining right up into the sky, everyone can see it. Everyone knows where it is. There's going to be very much no real hiding this thing. So I think Korra, a lot of the older characters involved in this, Tenzin, President Raiko, and so on, Lin, will very much want, to some extent, some control over who can go into the Spirit Portal and what can come out of the Spirit Portal as well. Obviously the spirits are now living in Republic City. There's an element of that, but this, having the portal be right there and not spirits coming in from the North and South Poles and then arriving in Republic City. No, this is spirits, if they really wanted to, could just flood in from the Spirit Portal if they wanted to. So this to some extent presents a little bit of danger, I suppose, for humanity. As we know, the relationship between humans and spirits isn't great. We are potentially, if things get worse, looking at a bad situation where a lot more spirits could come in, and it would really force the people running in Republic City to do something to help people interact with spirits and really make some changes to fix that interaction with spirits, which to me would highlight that Korra's role would have to be in relation to fixing the relationship between humans and spirits, because let's not forget, the spirits basically abandoned Republic City the second anything was about to happen when Kavira was arriving. They did not help at all to defend the city that they were living in. They just left the humans to deal with it and then came back the second that was over. That's a problem for me, and I think it will be a problem for most people, in that the spirits just think they can go wherever they want, and they are very much, I think, going to have to realize that the human society works a little bit differently, and they're going to have to change with that. And so because of that, I think characters like Boomy, like Jinora, who are very spiritual people, and perhaps the airbenders in general, are going to play a role at, to some extent, teaching the general population of Republic City about how to handle spirits and not cause issues and that sort of thing. And then it also creates the issue of that, like, as we suspect, there are still triads around the place, still active, and still crime going on in the city. We are going to have to get that sort of stuff addressed too. And if there are criminals doing stuff, they now have this weird escape route into the spirit portal, like criminals in the spirit world. And how can you catch them and stop them from causing havoc in the spirit world, and like how do you do that? So I think we may see something like a section of the police force created that is effectively the spiritual police force. And I think characters, some of the airbenders might get involved in that. Potentially Boomy, I could see him being involved with that. Jinora, as effectively the most spiritual of our main characters, could get involved in that, and Korra perhaps assisting with that. And that would also potentially create a thing for Mako to do, because obviously he, now that Wu is basically back to the way things are with Wu, I'll address that more later on, the whole Earth Kingdom situation. But I think Mako was going to go back to more or less what he's doing, his job. The thing with Mako is, though, Mako is injured as of the end of Book 4. And as far as we're aware, this series is taking place basically immediately after Book 4, with very little time gap, maybe just a couple of days, and I don't think Mako will be fully healed. Now, the thing that will change that, of course, is that healing exists in the Avatar world, but it is a kind of more scarred, burn kind of heal, rather than like he broke his arm or anything like that. So it could just be a situation where after a couple of healing sessions with Korra, Mako is basically back to, able to do basically whatever he wants, fighting fit. Maybe his that arm will always be somewhat of a lingering injury for him, but in general it will be healed. We're not fully sure, but as he goes back to being on the the Republic City Police Force, I think his role will be enhanced. I think he will be given a much bigger role. He could be the one put in charge of doing some sort of policing of the spirit portal, and that could create some interesting dynamics. Or, as I suspect, if you want to really do something big with Mako, have, basically set Mako up to be the next chief of police. I think they're absolutely implying that he is one of the most intelligent characters in the show, one of the best detectives in terms of the way his mind works. And I think Lin definitely respects him and, sees him as someone responsible that she can give a lot of responsibility to. So I think she might be setting him up as the next one in line. So I'd like to see that, and that could very much link into the whole spirit portal issue that is perhaps going on. And we know that at least the key things that Mako has been doing up to now as a police officer has been investigating the triads and, investigating the red monsoons and stuff like that. So we may see more of that with Mako in this series as well, just as a kind of like introduction back into Mako in the comics. We may just see like, oh, here's what Mako's been doing. He's been messing around with the triads and trying to stop that as a thing in the city. Maybe even we'll see the Equalist referenced again, because obviously we know they're still around. They're not fully gone. They're just much smaller than they were under Amon, but they still exist. There are still people who really hate benders, so of course the Equalists still exist. But yeah, so I think that as a kind of general plot concept of just revolving a lot of stuff around the rebuilding of the city, which is going to involve a lot of characters. Asami, of course, will be involved in that. She's already helped to open one of the train stations in Republic City. So I very much think she, her company, perhaps Varric as well, will be assisting with money and just supplying that sort of rebuilding technical know-how that they have to rebuild the city. And they may be involved in building whatever needs to be built, potentially around the spirit portals and so on. Because obviously the difference here, as I said, it's in the middle of the city. The northern and south spirit portals just seem to be left as they are. They're spiritual locations. They're just as is. And because they're in relatively isolated locations, away from the main cities of both the northern and southern water tribes, there's not much of a risk of just people hiking out to them and going through the portal. That's fine. But this is right in the middle of a big city, the biggest city with all these different nations in there. So it's something has to be done about that. It's so big, so important. I can see some sort of a situation where Asami and Korra are in the spirit world for a couple of days, and then we start off the Korra comics with the two of them coming out, and basically they're in the middle of like this kind of police checkpoint thing around the spirit portal, and that may be where the series kind of kicks off from. That the plot is like, Korra's like, what are you doing? You are really being like bad with how you're handling this with regards to spirituality and spirits and so on. Don't know exactly how to do that, but I think that would be interesting, and that I suppose would allow Korra and Asami to have various interactions, but not be together for like the entire book, in that Asami could, just in terms of a solo plot for Asami, be more focused on the money, organization, rebuilding side of Republic City, rebuilding Republic City, whereas Korra will be more concerned with the spiritual, doing her avatar duty, and handling the balance between humans and spirit side of things. But fundamentally they are both working towards the whole goal of making Republic City better after what happened at the end of book 4. So I think that's a cool way to do it. And then in the kind of off moments when they're done with the general day-to-day stuff, you can have them go on dates, address their relationship, interact with other characters, and have that more romance, shipping heavy side of the book as well. So yeah, that covers a decent amount of the characters. I can't see characters like Tenzin having too big of a role. I think we will see him potentially make some decisions with regards to what the Airbenders are going to do at this point in time. Like, I think they'll continue to be their kind of like general Jedi selves, where they kind of travel the world, assisting people, and also trying to find the other Airbenders who, of course, are probably still out there, getting new Airbenders, people who have just discovered their Airbenders, and that's going to be a continuous thing, I suppose, as the Avatar universe goes on from here, in that there will, of course, be Airbenders that just become Airbenders, aren't discovered by the roaming Airbenders as part of the air nomads, and are just to themselves, and so there'll be pockets of Airbenders as time progresses, just all over the place, and we may get different like factions of Airbenders. So I think Harmonic Convergence has set that up, that okay, it's brought the air nomads, the very traditional airbending style, back, but it could bring different styles of it back as well, in that there'll be people who are just Airbenders but grow up as part of the Fire Nation or Earth Kingdom and so on. So very interesting stuff, but that's looking more to the complete future of things. I suppose a character I haven't mentioned yet, Bolin. I think Bolin is probably one of the most confusing characters to really discuss heading into the Korra comics, in that he is a lava bender. He's had so many different like roles and little jobs that he's doing over the course of the series. Like, he's a mover star, former part of the pro bending team, formerly part of kind of Kuvira's Earth Empire. He's been helping Varric. Varric's kind of been his manager to some extent. Team Avatar member, but now like he's just like now he's not part of Kuvira's army. He's just like, okay, his relationship with Opal I think will be addressed, absolutely, but what else? Like, he's a super powerful bender, but he's not directly part of any organization where he can obviously use that. I think what we did get from book 4 with Bolin is that he realizes, I think, that what he wants to do and what he's good at is helping people, this more humanitarian side of him, because he was excellent at that when he thought that that's what the Earth Empire was about, supplying aid to various Earth Kingdom cities, but obviously wasn't so happy with Kuvira's ultimate goals as a leader. So I can see him doing some sort of a like kind of charity type stuff, maybe assisting with Republic City right now, but primarily maybe going into more kind of humanitarian type work in the future. Maybe he will join the United Forces. I think that would actually be a good role for him, in that that might connect him with people who could help him to fully master and utilize lava bending, and him being part of that military would, give him a platform to do all this aid across the world in, and then also be kind of called upon if there are any like big conflicts to fight in, that he's a super powerful bender. In a similar way to, I suppose, Boomy, but less as him being a leader in the sense of like they're both these kind of in general kind of goofy characters, but a lot of their talents actually would work well in a kind of military setting. So I can see that maybe happening with Bolin, but that he's definitely the one I find it hardest to place what exactly they'll do with him. I think they do have to cover a little bit more, even if it's only just really minor stuff in the background, just address Opal and Bolin's relationship, and that I like what they did at the end, but really it was just that little Opal kiss on the cheek to Bolin, she kind of forgives him, they're back together, but like it was Bolin who's the one who said I love you to Opal, and she didn't return it, and then they're just seen dancing at the wedding. Like I think just one moment where just we get a nice moment with them and Opal says the I love you back to Bolin, I think is something that's needed. I talked about Jinora already, and I think her spirituality, and that she's effectively the most spiritual character right now, is going to be important in this book. I hope if there is a fight scene that she gets a chance to really prove herself. Again, like always criticism with book 4 of not using her all that well. But another thing they have to do is show off her relationship with Kai more. Because in book 4, Kai and Opal were placed together as a kind of duo, and they talked about their various relationships, and Kai just mentioned his kind of long distance relationship with Jinora is really working well, they're getting on great, so they're a really nice couple. But then when they're finally back together towards the end of book 4, they don't talk, like they're just kind of taken out of things as like talking characters, and we don't really get to see what their relationship is like properly like. So there's disappointing elements to book 4 with those two, and again that's another one where I just like to see them, maybe just a little scene where they go out on a date, or like there's a double or triple date with a bunch of the characters that go out, or something like that. If there is going to be a little bit more of a romance heavy side of this book, I could see them just addressing some of these other relationships for sure. Other than that, I suppose the most obvious thing is the political situation in the Earth Kingdom, with what Wu is planning to do with regards to Earth King and stepping down as Earth King and effectively ending the whole idea of there being a kind of monarch in the Earth Kingdom. That's super interesting in that I assume a lot of the leaders in Republic City and Korra to some extent will have to play a role in handling that, in that Kuvira was the one who they did bring some stability back to the Earth Kingdom after what happened at the end of book 3, but obviously she brought it back in a more forceful way, dictator sort of way, so there's still some problems in the Earth Kingdom that absolutely have to be dealt with. So I made the assumption at the start that most of the core comics will focus around the just Republic City, and we wouldn't get much traveling. If there is any traveling, I can see it being to certain parts of the Earth Kingdom, which, the United Republic fundamentally is kind of just a section of the Earth Kingdom, even though it's separate now. So, them traveling to parts of the Earth Kingdom isn't too big of a stretch, in that, there comes a point where like there's a border between the United Republic and the Earth Kingdom, so it's not too big of a stretch to just switch between one and the other. Sue, I can see, them delving a little bit into, so maybe we'll see some Zaufu again, but Kuvira is another one they need to address. People are always talking about the trial of Kuvira. Will that actually be a thing? I think to further develop Sue and Kuvira as characters, and even Batar Jr. as well, and maybe Batar Sr. as well, I would like to see some sort of a focus on the trial, because I think you have to address that Sue took in Kuvira as a very young girl when she was orphaned by her parents, when her parents left her. And that I never got the sense in any of their interactions that there was in any way a mother-daughter kind of relationship between Sue and Kuvira. They never really showed that. And so I'd kind of like them to address that a little bit more going forward, and address how Kuvira feels about Baatar, Baatar feels about Kuvira, potentially address Baatar Jr.'s issues with his father, as they both are basically going to stand trial for what they did in Book 4. So just using the comic as a way to basically just get further in depth on some of the stuff from Book 4 that wasn't developed the best, I think could work. But other than that, like I can't really see the focus being all on Earth Kingdom elections in like every single province in the Earth Kingdom. It's just a little bit too much going on. I think they will catch us up on what's going on, and that like we'll maybe at some point in this book get a little bit of a time skip in that, like, okay, here's what's happening immediately after Book 4. Couple of months later, things are getting better, and we'll have just these various points in time, and we'll just more or less catch up as Wu is figuring out what's going on, like who's going to be elected here, there. Maybe we'll see some Omashu, which I think would be cool. But other than that, like, obviously because it's basically a person elected for each province, they're not going to introduce us to many or potentially any of these characters, so it's just something to basically say, okay, the Earth Kingdom's getting back to a level of stability with its new way of being governed, and we'll roughly see what's happening there. The other thing I suppose is, given that I think the Spirit Portal will be a focus, like, will they actually really go for trying to address this conflict between humans and spirits, this weird thing where they just don't seem to be able to get on the same page. They just can't agree on everything, unable to work together. I suppose more on the spirit side of things as the problem, more so than the other way around, that the spirits don't seem to like humans, whereas the humans at the very least want to some extent try, though of course there will always be people who don't want the spirits. But I think it's something that Korra needs to try and make happen, and I don't know if a lot of this book will be in the spirit world or not, but at the very least I'd like to see an attempt made by Korra as like the thing that's top of her list as the Avatar going forward, now that she has plans as the Avatar, which she says at the end of Book 4. I would hope the top of that list is trying to fix the human spirit rift that has been there basically since Wan's time, and that he attempted to fix that rift, and he rightfully at the time separated the two just so there could be some space between them. The humans could like build themselves back up. The spirits have their own world, but the spirit world, they don't need the physical world as well, and now we're starting to see them come back again. We need to address that, absolutely. Other than that, like, characters like Varrick and Julie, I think we will see. I think Varrick will probably assist with Asami in rebuilding the city. I could potentially see a reveal, maybe not in the very first book, but 2, 3, that perhaps at some point Julie is pregnant or something like that. Varrick's expecting a child, just because I think that you could get some very fun interactions out of like Varrick as an expectant father and pregnant Julie and stuff like that. Just this crazy relationship that everyone in the fandom loves, but see them as they're expecting a child. I think that would be just really fun to see progress. And as you go through the comics, you have your time skips. We can gradually see the birth of this child and stuff like that. I'd actually really like to see that be a thing, and just continue the crazy life of Varrick with a child, and see what they name him as well, because the whole joke of all their names, Varrick, Icknick Blackstone and Julie Moon and stuff like that, like what would the child be called? But yeah, other than that, like, there's other more minor characters that could be involved here. Like the rest of Sue's children, like Wei and Wing and Huan and those type of characters, I don't really see them being involved. The other Air kids, Iki, Milo, and potentially Rohan, I would like to maybe see a little bit more in Rohan, like maybe confirm, just as a super small side plot, confirm or deny if Rohan is an airbender. I'd like that to be confirmed. Iki and Milo, I'd like to just see a little bit more focus on them again. I don't know really what they would do to really give them focus. It's probably asking a bit too much actually for that, given that the comic has to do so much, but even if they just used them in their typical way, where they just come in, add a little bit of comedy, humor with their personalities, that's fine. But I suppose maybe just on the Airbender side of things, maybe hint at who's going to be the next Master Airbender. Because obviously Jinora was the first since Tenzin, effectively, but who's next in line? I would think Kai, potentially, maybe Opal. But, you know, I could see Milo or Iki maybe getting it just because they've had a bit more experience. But I think Kai is maybe on that level, because he was established in Book 3 to be one of the best of the new recruits, effectively. And given that it's 2 years on since since Jinora has had her tattoos, I think we're in that kind of experience time period where someone else should be potentially getting their tattoos. So, I'd definitely be on the lookout for that. Just with Airbenders, if we see a lot of them in the comics, just if anyone new has got tattoos or not. Boomy, will he get tattoos ever? I don't know, because it would be a really cool moment, because it would be such a great connection to his father in terms of like him. A lot of his kind of key issues in like Book 4 with the airbending was like, I am an airbender, but I feel like I'm falling behind. I don't feel as connected, even though I am an airbender now. And you know, it would be such a strong moment for him to get the tattoos just like his father had. But at the same time, will he ever be at the level where he is deserving of them? But at the same time, in Book 4, they did establish that he was actually quite strong as an airbender now. He actually, the training off screen in the past 2 years has worked. I think at some point he will get them. Whether or not after a little time skip we'll see that or not, I'm not sure. But I just hope that is something they don't forget. The writers, Mike and Brian and so on, the artist, I hope they don't forget that Master Airbenders having arrow tattoos is a thing, and that 2 years have passed, and realistically we should be getting close to new people getting those tattoos and it being a more regular thing within the Avatar universe. It's just something I hope they don't forget, because there's been an Air Noma genocide, and we haven't had like a lot of characters getting tattoos in a long time. So just remember that, everyone. Just keep an eye out for that. Outside of that, it's difficult to think about, because there's just so many characters who potentially could get focus or not, and then there's always the potential that this book does completely leave Republic City and it's just very early focused on Republic City, and they do for some reason go to the Fire Nation. If the Fire Nation is in any way involved in this book, I think they are going to commit to that story that they were planning with Mako and Izumi's daughter, the crown princess of the Fire Nation at this point in time, that they will start a relationship between Mako and this Izumi's daughter. So I think that would make sense. That would be Zuko's granddaughter, so you know that would be a cool relationship to have. Just give Mako something more. Commit to giving him a strong relationship that you're not going to mess around with, like a lot of the other Mako relationships you've already done. I'd like to see that. And then just in general, like, catch us up. Like, what's the Fire Nation like at this point in time? Have they finally gotten past the whole, I suppose, guilt over what happened? You know, like they've changed obviously from the evil line of Fire Lords. Have things come back to normal? What is the economic situation in the Fire Nation like now? How powerful is it? That sort of thing. I'd like to catch up and establish is Mei, like this comic could be the one to go, like, is Mei Izumi's mother or not? That sort of thing. But that's just speculation if they do go that direction, which I don't think they will, because as I said at the start and I'll say at the end here, I think they realize that they need to have that the show, Book 4 and Korra in general, needed a little bit more of an epilogue. So I think this first Korra comic, at the very least the first part, will act more as an epilogue, further wrapping up stuff and then setting up the plot going forward. The very last thing I want to mention is just, will we have a villain in these Korra comics? That is, I think, the big question. Will there be any actual conflict in this comic? there's always the potential that they just have some of our main characters at conflict with each other. That perhaps Mako, as part of the police force, is asked to kind of monitor the spirit portal and not allow people in and out, whereas Korra, Jinora, and all these other characters maybe wanted free and open to promote, balance between the two species, humans and spirits. That could create a conflict. As for if there will be a villain or not, I don't really know. I have a feeling there may not be, in that I don't think there will see a lot of fighting. I think we may see some dark spirits and, Korra having to fight benders and potentially protect people who either go into the spirit world, or dark spirits, evil spirits who actually come out of the spirit portal. But I don't think we'll really see that a lot of benders outside of maybe some triad fights and stuff like that. I don't see any huge amazing threat on the lines of the core villains we've had already. If there are any villains, it's going to be thugs and stuff like that, characters that will be defeated quite easily. I think the main thing here is just character focus, I think, has to be the thing. So that's been the topic. In the comments, continue to recommend me future topics for these Avatar Weekly Discussion topic videos. And then also let me know what your thoughts are. What are your final speculations about the various characters, what the plot will be for the upcoming Korra comics. But definitely keep an eye out on my channel over the next couple of weeks as we begin to get news about what exactly is happening with Avatar and Korra at San Diego Comic-Con, whether or not we're getting our own Avatar panel or it'll just be part of the Dark Horse panel. I will absolutely make as many news videos as I need to cover all of this, so stay tuned to my channel for that. But that's been this video. Thanks for watching, and bye.